So, today we're going to dive into a story that's thousands of years old, but you'll see its central conflict feels like it could have been ripped from today's headlines. It's all about this clash between two totally opposing worldviews, one that builds massive empires on fear, and another that quietly, bravely resists with courage. Our story kicks off with these words, spoken by a new king in Egypt. He sees a problem, and he calls for a wise solution. But let's be clear, this isn't the kind of wisdom that builds bridges or saves lives. No, this is something much, much darker. And that really is the heart of the whole thing, isn't it? What actually happens when the people in charge, the ones making these quote-unquote wise decisions for everybody else, are really just motivated by a deep, gnawing fear of losing their grip on power? All right, so first up, let's talk about this king's whole philosophy. It's a worldview born entirely from insecurity, and we're about to see how the fear of one powerful person can become a nightmare for everyone else. So a new king comes to power in Egypt, and this guy, he doesn't know the history. He doesn't remember Joseph, an Israelite who literally saved the entire nation from a catastrophic famine. All this new king sees is that the Israelite population is doing well. They're thriving, growing, and in his paranoid mind, their success isn't a good thing for the nation. It's a direct threat to his control. What's so chilling here is how systematic this all is. It's like a predictable playbook for tyranny. It doesn't just start with genocide out of nowhere. No, it starts small, with fear. The king starts thinking, hey, what if there's a war? What if these people side with our enemies? And that paranoia gets turned into official policy, brutal forced labor. But when that doesn't crush their spirits, when the Israelites just keep on thriving, the logic escalates to its most horrific conclusion: state-sponsored murder. You see, this isn't just random cruelty, it's actually a philosophy. Let's call it the empire's wisdom. It's a worldview that basically says, my peace and my security are the only things that matter, and I am totally justified in doing whatever it takes to protect them, even if that means crushing you, dominating you, or sacrificing you. And the contrast here is just, wow, it's so stark. Just a few generations before this, Egypt was being guided by the wisdom of Joseph, a wisdom that saved not just Egypt, but pretty much the whole region from starvation. That was a wisdom of life. This new pharaoh's wisdom, it's guided by fear, and it only leads to death. But here's where the story takes a turn. Because every system of oppression, well, it eventually creates its own resistance. And in this story, the very first heroes to stand up to the most powerful man on the planet weren't generals or politicians. They were two midwives. Just try to imagine this for a second. You're called in to see the king, the ruler of everything, and he gives you this command. Your entire job, your whole purpose, is to bring new life into the world. And now, this guy is ordering you to become an agent of death, to kill the very babies you're supposed to be helping. That is the moral crisis they're facing. So what did they do? The story gives us this simple but incredibly profound reason for their defiance. The king might have had the power of an army, but these midwives, they were operating from a totally different allegiance. They didn't fear the king, they feared God. They had a higher loyalty to life itself than to the orders of some tyrant. And right here, you see the two worldviews just colliding head-on. The wisdom of the empire says, sacrifice them so that I can be safe. It's a logic based on control. But the wisdom these midwives lived by is the complete opposite. It's a wisdom that says life is sacred, and it's better to risk yourself to save someone else. It's a logic based on reverence. And get this, they weren't anonymous heroes. The story makes a huge point of telling us their names. They are Shiphrah and Puah. And you're going to want to remember those names because they are absolutely central to this whole story. Now, it's really easy for us to sit back and condemn this pharaoh, right? But the real power of this ancient story is how it forces us to see that same exact logic at work in our own world right now. So let's just ask ourselves, does this sound at all familiar? This whole idea that for the so-called greater good, whether it's for profit or progress or security, that some people's lives are just, well, expendable? Yeah, this empire's wisdom isn't some dusty, ancient history. It's the logic humming behind so many modern headlines. It's the cold calculation that it's cheaper to just pay a fine for a safety violation than to actually protect your workers. It's the decision to risk consumer health to squeeze out a higher profit margin.
And it's the quiet acceptance of these massive global supply chains that run on the backs of exploited, nameless people. It's that constant justification that, some sacrifices are just necessary for the quote-unquote greater good. But the question is always the same. Who gets to decide who is sacrificed?
And this all leads us to the final and honestly, maybe the most powerful part of this whole story: legacy. This isn't just about oppression and resistance. It's about who history actually remembers in the end. Now, here's something really fascinating. The book this story comes from actually has two different titles. In Greek, we call it Exodus, which means the way out. But in the original Hebrew, the title is Shemot, which simply means names. Now, why on earth would that be so important? Because here is the incredible, profound irony. The king of Egypt, this all-powerful ruler who commanded armies, built cities with slave labor, and tried to wipe out an entire generation, he's never named in the text. He's just Pharaoh. In the grand story of history, he is an anonymous tyrant. But the midwives, the ones who seemed completely powerless, who had no army, no political clout, who just made a simple choice to protect life, their names are recorded for all time: Shiphrah and Puah. They are the ones history chose to remember.
And it gets even better, because their names actually have meaning. Shiphrah means beauty, and Puah means splendor or light. Think about that. In a time of unimaginable darkness and death, these two women brought beauty and light into the world with their quiet, courageous actions. History remembers the light, not just the darkness it overcame.
So this ancient story really leaves us with a pretty serious modern challenge. In a world that is still full of the empire's wisdom, a world that constantly asks us to sacrifice other people for our own comfort and security, what kind of story are we choosing to live? Are we going to be nameless players in systems that cause harm? Or will we, like Shiphrah and Puah, have a name that's remembered for bringing a little beauty and a little light into the darkness?